Hello and welcome to the Law Podcast, brought to you by the University of Stirling Law Society. I am your host, Jedd France. Today I am joined by Chloe Kennedy, Senior Legal Technologist at Ashurst Advance Digital, to discuss the role of technology within the legal industry and how it is used to enhance efficiency. So hello everyone, welcome back to the show. Hope everyone is doing well. I know we're recording this a little bit in advance, but as it stands right now when we're recording, the sun has currently been shining for about 3 days, which is lovely. So I hope everyone's been enjoying the nice weather that we're surprisingly having here in Scotland. Obviously, if you're listening further afield, the weather may vary, but here in Scotland, as it stands, it's absolutely beautiful. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Chloe Kennedy, who is a Senior Legal Technologist at Ashurst Advance. Chloe, first of all, how are you doing? How's your day going?
I'm very well, thank you, Jedd. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Definitely enjoying the sunshine, something that is very, very rare in Scotland at the moment. So, nice day.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, it's not exactly expected right now. It's only March as it stands, so having a little bit of sunshine definitely helps. Now, Chloe, just to give a bit of background for everyone listening, I think I'm right in saying you spoke at our Legal Tech conference back in August, so this isn't your first interaction with the Stirling Law Society, and I came to know of you personally because I wasn't at the Legal Tech conference, at an event hosted by I think it's the University of Aberdeen Legal Tech Society, and it was like a becoming a legal technologist event, and it was yourself and another speaker who were speaking about your roles in the industry in general, and that's when I approached you to come on the podcast, because this is an area of the legal industry which is obviously up and coming. It's continually progressing. There's a lot more eyes on it as every day goes by. It's something that I think is a really, really important topic to discuss. So that's kind of how I came to know of your work. Would you like to just provide a little bit of background into your own background prior to working in Ashurst and how you managed to find your way into the legal technologist team there?
Sure, not a problem. So, much like many of you listening to today's podcast, my background is in legal. So, straight from high school, I joined the University of Edinburgh, where I studied my Bachelor's of Laws degree and then went straight on to do my diploma in professional legal practice. So, like a lot of people, you go into law with the idea of, it's interesting, it equips you with so many key skills, and generally it's, what you learn there is something that's transferable in so many industries, whether or not you decide to follow down, the legal path or otherwise. So one of the things that sort of stood out to me, I think, when I was going through my education was I did find it interesting. I liked kind of the diverse topics that you were covering throughout the law degree, but
Yep.
there was nothing that really captured me, I would say, at least not in the Bachelor's of Law. But me myself, I'm a bit geeky. I've always loved, technology. Um, like ever since I was young, I've always kind of been involved in like, getting the latest gadgets, games consoles, all that kind of stuff. So technology was always something that was of interest to me. And one of the things that sort of really hit home when I was doing my studies was actually this sort of new emerging area of legal tech. Now, it was something that wasn't really covered at all in university when I was there, at least. But so I never really understood properly, well, what actually was like legal technology. Like, I never really knew. I just assumed
Yeah.
like, oh well, we do emails, like we do podcasts. This is like
Yeah.
this is like better, so this is like slight improvement
Yeah.
compared to what it used to be. But I think where it really hit home for me was when I done my diploma in professional legal practice. So when I was studying there, it was really good because you're getting hands on with the tasks that a lawyer actually does in the day to day, and that is when it really hit home to me just how old fashioned law could be, and
Yeah.
how much time is spent doing some of the, I would say, simplest of tasks. Like you go into law with the mindset of, you're there to like make a difference. You're going to be like helping your clients, like do what I suppose what is asked of them. You expect to be sort of getting into the nitty gritty of work, whereas the reality is there's quite a lot of administrative tasks that take up
Yeah.
quite a lot of your day. And I think when it really hit home for me was I remember researching it, like researching legal tech whilst I was studying, and thinking how long it would take me to draft one of my assignments. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, this is taking me hours, and it's just been populating, the same stuff. So it really shouldn't be taking that long. I was like, imagine doing this every single day. Um, so rather than finding my passion for law, what I actually found was a desire to like change it and kind of
Yeah.
make it more interesting. Um, so when I eventually got my diploma, I was just on the lookout, to see what other roles I suppose were out there. Like where could I leverage my legal experience without typically going down the traditional route. And that is when I noticed Ashurst were advertising for roles here in Glasgow, so where I am currently. And yeah, that was it. So we're talking maybe 2018. I joined in the summer. I joined the legal technology team in Ashurst, and I have been there ever since.
Great. That's a really interesting path you've went on, and I can definitely relate to some of the things that you're saying, because obviously I'm still only in my second year right now, so I've still got a lot more to learn, and but even now I'm starting to see certain aspects of the way the legal industry is, especially when I'm speaking to more and more professionals through this podcast and through different networking stuff, how tedious it can be and how old fashioned it can be, and it just takes a long time, like you say, to get the most simplistic of tasks done, which is it's very tedious. So yeah, like I mentioned to you before we started recording, Chloe, I do want to kind of come at this podcast from the angle of a law student who has roughly or pretty much no idea of what legal tech involves, and what sort of different tools will be encountered by a legal technologist on a day-to-day basis. So on that topic, legal tech is spoken about a lot, but it can be quite a vague term, and I'm sure it encapsulates a whole host of different tools. So in your opinion, in a nutshell, how would you best describe legal tech to someone who is completely oblivious as to what it is?
Well, you're certainly right in saying that it is quite vague and it
Yep.
does encapsulate many, many things. So it can be quite difficult to try and come up with like a proper description, I would say. But probably the best way to try and highlight what legal technology is it's technology that is there to enhance the work that you do. It's a way of improving the service that you are delivering, of removing inefficiencies from the tasks that you are doing. So legal technology itself encompasses a lot of things. And actually, I would probably question the legal technology being called legal technology in the first
Yeah.
place. Because it's something that it's there to help businesses. We of course use it ourselves within law firms, but at the end of the day, we are also a business. The technology is just there to try and improve the very way in which we do things. So that can be the tools themselves, wide variety that's applicable to, I suppose, to the work that we do in our day to day. We have everything from case management systems to like task and project management systems. Where you're seeing the benefit here because it's helping you and your teams actually keep on track of the work that you're doing and the documents that you're filing, that you're storing. Sort of related to that is also the use of like collaborative workspaces and virtual data rooms. Like these are also
Yep.
technologies, because it's just a way of, again, making it a lot easier for you to like share documents or share knowledge with other people, whether that's different teams, whether it's you and your clients. It's just a way to actually collaborate better together. We're
Yeah.
not like sending letters to things anymore. We're not posting documents to one another, or having to like email tons of documents back and forth, because these are, again, heavily administrative tasks, and they're not the most efficient. I mean, inboxes can become clogged, so things can be missed. If files are too large, then they might not even send via email. So it's identifying little problems like this and thinking, what do we actually have available to actually, to improve this, to make this just generally a better experience for those involved. So there's like a huge amount of tools that are out there. And I think these sort of collaborative workspaces have been one of the key ones that have become more adopted over the past few years. But there's a lot of like really cool stuff that's been really brought into the scope of legal over the past like 5-10 years, and we're definitely seeing a bigger upkeep now. And that is the use of like document automation platforms. So instead of, some of you may have already, have had access to legal documents, or legal precedents, even particularly if you have a look on like the practical law
Yeah.
precedents available. You will see that some of these documents are huge, and there's a lot of like, conditional text or text where information has to be inserted, and that is a lot of work. If you imagine yourself as like a solicitor having to fill goodness knows how many of these on a daily basis. It takes a lot of time to control F everything to try and
Yeah.
find and change this information. So, and at the end of the day, like for a lot of people that are involved in this kind of work, like, you don't want to be relying heavily on, your time being spent doing administrative stuff. If you're a fee earner, you want to earn fees. So what like platforms like on the sort of document automation platforms, what they do is that they're taking away like a lot of that administrative burden, and they are enabling, either yourself, if you're familiar with the platform, or if it's somebody who is a technologist, to actually automate these documents. So instead of you having to constantly refer to a precedent and, find and replace things, what like, people like myself and others in the industry, what we're doing is, we're taking these documents or document packages, we're automating them and creating like a questionnaire. So generally quite a nice user interface for somebody as well to use. And they're populating information once, not much else to it, just putting
Yeah.
information in once, and then once you go through that, you just press like save and continue, or save and close rather, and out pops your document suite literally in a matter of seconds from pressing that button. So it's like huge time savings, and honestly, just again, it's there to sort of make your life easier. So then you're not having to go through the repetitive motions of doing these like time-consuming tasks every single time. So that's really what we're there for. It's there to actually enrich the work that you do, not, it's there to, I suppose, help you in your day to day, and just help businesses sort of work in a more efficient manner.
Yeah, I think that's a really good description, Chloe, and I'm glad that you went on a rather long description there, because like I said at the start there of the question, it is a very vague term and it encapsulates a lot of tools, and I don't think it's something that anyone's really going to fully understand just from listening to this podcast alone for 25, 30 minutes, however long it may be. It's something that will take time to research, and it may be going to workshops where you might have your chances to get your hands on the software and really see how these sort of tools are being implemented. And just for a bit of background, Chloe's also involved in the commercial awareness module that we've been taking as part of our second year on the LLB course here at Stirling. And we recently had a kind of workshop with Ashurst with different employees, and I know Brighter were there as well. And what I really took away from that workshop in particular was legal tech is really sort of causing a really positive domino effect, if that makes sense, in the fact that the technology is there, it saves a lot of time, it's really efficient, which makes the life easier for the law firms and the lawyers and legal technologists, but it also makes life a lot easier for the clients as well, because they're saving money, things are getting done a lot faster and perhaps more efficiently as well, with when you're using software and tech to go through perhaps hundreds and hundreds of documents, if it's document automation or document review, and picking out certain terms rather than having a group of lawyers spending literally thousands of hours round a table looking through these documents one by one with a highlighter. It's a lot more efficient, and it will save a lot of money for the client, which again, being a law firm, is ultimately the main priority for that firm, is to really enhance the client experience. Now, Chloe, something I wanted to ask at the workshop, I know I messaged you during the workshop, was like, I'm going to try and keep some questions just for the podcast, because I know as we were going through, I was writing questions down. I was like, I've got a lot of questions here, but I don't want to ask all the questions at the workshop and feel like I'm just repeating them to you on the podcast. So one that really stuck out for me is how much of your job as a legal technologist actually relates to the law? Is it mostly tech work as opposed to utilising your legal knowledge that you would have got from your LLB and your DPLP?
So I think it's a mix. Because the work that I'm involved in, it is like predominantly coming from a legal space. I am working with, clients coming from various backgrounds, but ultimately the work that I do ties in with the things that I have learned, from my legal education. That being said, I wouldn't say it was like a primary driver, because the legal technologist role itself, it's good to have an understanding of the industry that you have entered into, and I think that is a key foundation to doing the role. But I wouldn't say it was like more important than the other. Because looking at kind of what I do day in and day out, I work very closely with the lawyers who know their practice area and know the projects, inside out to a degree of knowledge that I simply just would not have. Like I'm not
Yeah.
surrounded by, these practice areas every single day. But what I would say is that, actually having my legal education has helped me understand, what it is I actually am doing, why
Mm-hmm.
am I doing it? And it starts to sort of help me, I would say, sort of see on the horizon as to what I could do for, these particular clients or these particular practice areas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helps put things into perspective. From a tech piece, I came into the role, not having any prior experience of actually using the tools that I use now. I think the tech is probably the the key focus, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, because ultimately that's the differentiating factor. Like that's what a technologist does.
Mm-hmm.
So we are like really skilled up on the tech most of the time. But one of the things is that I'm fortunate about, having joined Ashurst, they're a really good firm and like supporting you and like training you. So I
Mm-hmm.
came in as an entry level, technologist with my legal knowledge, but with no real skill in the tech. I was interested, but I'd never used it before. So they taught me, on how to automate documents and how to like, use like machine learning AI to extract information. And they showed me how to do like set up workspaces and things. So naturally that then gave me that sort of understanding of the tools that I was using. And I think, like with everything, the more time that you spend using the tools and getting involved in a particular practice area, naturally the knowledge grows.
Yeah.
So I think, so I mean, it's definitely a bit of a mix. Like I think it's very good to have the legal knowledge because it puts things into perspective what you're doing, and it also helps you understand what you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, one of the things I would probably say as well is it's really key when you're speaking to your clients, um,
Yeah.
because you need to understand what they are doing. Like this is when that sort of like commercial awareness buzzword comes into play because
Yeah.
you need to understand why you're actually helping them and kind of what it is they want from you. And because it is like a legal task or whatever, so it's always relative to the legal work that us like we as a firm are delivering to our client. Having an understanding of that also elevates your sort of awareness of what it is you're delivering for the client and actually what else you can do.
Yeah.
So I would say they're both important, but they sort of they enhance the way I do my job in different ways.
Yeah. And I suppose it'll definitely give you some good perspective as well, because like you say, when you're client facing and you're dealing with clients who obviously work in the legal industry or whatever it may be, and they're coming to you for advice, if you do not have any legal knowledge whatsoever, it's going to be really hard for you to utilize the legal tools to the best of their ability to make the client's life as easy as possible, if that makes sense. You could just utilize it in the completely wrong way. I think that kind of context and perspective is definitely, it's definitely important. And as someone myself who's looking at legal tech as something that I'm really interested in, and it's really kind of becoming my main focus and kind of what I want to go into. I don't want to commit too early, I'm only a second year, but it's definitely something that I'm looking at thinking I really like the way this is going, because I've mentioned prior to different people that I have a background in web design and programming, so it's kind of combining both loves for me. I first had the love of tech and programming, computing, things like that, and then I fell in love with the law later in life in my mid-20s, and now it's kind of combining both of them, which seems like fate in some sort of way. It's both of my loves coming together. So yeah, it's definitely something I'm looking at, and it's really interesting to have you on here, Chloe, just to kind of explain it in more detail for people who maybe don't have that sort of context. So I know this is a question that I did ask at the workshop, but it wasn't yourself, Chloe, that answered it, so I'm going to fire it at you as well. It's a rather long one, so I'll try and shorten it down. Obviously, we've mentioned that the legal industry is somewhat outdated, it's very old-fashioned, it's very formal, all of those words. So has there been much pushback in your experience from clients on legal tech? For example, with document review, which would usually be done by a group of lawyers, are clients uncomfortable with placing a lot of their business and ultimately money in technology?
So I do think it's a really good question. And, you know, I've had this discussion a lot lately, and law was definitely sort of one of the more sort of traditional, industries. And
Yep.
the reason there's so much change, usually, like the reason why change tends to happen is because there is something driving it. Or, there's something that poses a threat to the very survival of this business. So they have to change to adapt. Now, law is not an industry that particularly had those threats. And that's why it's so difficult well, it was not difficult, sorry. It's why it took so long for law to catch
Yeah.
up. You know what I mean? Because like the legal industry, when you look at kind of, the work that lawyers have done, they've been doing since the end of time.
Yeah.
So, it's not really changed all too much. We have, as an industry, we've got students that pay high tuitions to break into the legal sector. We have lawyers that charge hourly rates.
Hmm.
So naturally, the longer it takes you to do a task, the more fees that lawyers get, and clients paid those rates. So what we were seeing was the legal industry was relatively stable. There was not, from that, like for so long, there wasn't really as much motivation to actually drive change in the legal industry. Sure, there was inefficiencies, like of course there was, but there wasn't the same kind of push. Now, the part of your question I thought was interesting because it's, you were spinning it to say, well, what about clients? Like, was it clients that had pushback? Um,
Yeah.
in fact, I would actually go to say that it's thanks to the clients that we have transformed the legal market.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
the clients were our drivers here because what we were seeing now is that there's been a change in just generally the way industries and the way businesses were were working. And we've sort of seen the rise of this more for less challenge. Now Tara had
Yeah.
mentioned this in our call, and actually it's something that we've been speaking about in the industry for years. It's been a key driver for change. We've seen now, where people maybe aren't getting, the same kind of like budget coming into, their teams or their offices anymore, but they're still
Hmm.
wanting the same service. And work is definitely not slowed down for businesses. Like, if anything, it's ramped up over the past 5-10 years. We've seen how busy that just general businesses are, I suppose. Like, we're working a
Yeah.
lot more now than we did like 20-30 years ago. um,
Hmm.
so despite having this increased workload, what we're actually seeing now is just it's a desire from clients more so to try and reduce the costs whilst also getting the task done and getting it done as efficient and to a high standard. So they were probably our key driver for change. So gone were the days where they could come to a solicitor and be like, oh, it's fine if you take goodness knows how many hours. Sure, we'll just throw money at it. That
Yeah.
that wasn't it anymore. It was more a case of, you were now seeing that actually clients were still wanting more from you. They were wanting you to do more. They want more than just legal advice. They want this sort of like management side of things. They want to see that you're capable of managing this project, but they don't want to be spending ridiculous amounts of money for you to do that. So that was like a key driver, I would say, for us. They were the ones that posed a threat to the survival of how we traditionally delivered services. And yeah, I would definitely say, that has been a key change for us as an industry. So there are some elements where, we may still see some resistance,
Yep.
whether it not be from particular clients or from maybe even some lawyers themselves. You've always got, the sort of age-old joke about, oh well, if we use technology, then it like takes away our jobs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That perpetual concern. But
We're gonna have killer legal robots running around.
exactly. It's like, well, we can definitely assure you we are not working with them.
Yeah.
So no, and I think that's it. So because there's always that kind of perception that since technology has sort of been developed, it's been there to take away jobs, or
Yeah.
you know, or you've got the flip side where people are more concerned because they're like, well, we've seen hacks online, we've seen,
Yeah.
issues around cybersecurity, or having things up in the cloud, and it is simply because these are like not really new concepts, but in terms of business, yeah, these are things that are new, that are different to people, things that people don't really know a great deal about. So
Hmm.
I think part and parcel of our role as technologists is not just about trying to showcase actually the benefits of using tech, but it's actually quite educational in this sense as well, because it's teaching people like, well, what is the cloud? Like, well, this is the cloud. This is how you can use it.
Yeah.
This is how your data and things are actually secure. Um, so I think you do definitely have some resistance, but we're definitely seeing a change now where, clients are absolutely on board with this. They are looking at, well, actually, we're now seeing things done in a much quicker, shorter time period, and we're still getting the same high standard of work that we expect from our lawyers, or, from like our advisors. So the benefits are kind of outweighing the concerns. And
Hmm.
we're definitely seeing a great deal of support now. And
Yeah.
safe to say, COVID has been another driver for that.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I think if anyone was skeptical about legal tech before, I think the past year has kind of forced their hand a little bit. You've kind of got to adapt now. It's either adapt or die, pretty much, I suppose. Especially with things like DocuSign and stuff, people could maybe try and avoid it before, but now with the whole restrictions, not being close to each other, whatever it may be, not leaving the house even, DocuSign's become such a big key player in the legal world to make sure all the documents get signed. So
Definitely.
yeah, Chloe, thank you for that in-depth answer. I really do appreciate it. Now, in the slides at the workshop, which I mentioned, it was mentioned that legal technologists have solved client problems by coding certain software and tools.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if maybe I'm approaching this question the wrong way, or maybe I've interpreted it wrong, but in your opinion, does this mean if you're looking to become a legal technologist in the future, it would be wise to begin learning basic code? And if so, if you say yes, which code should it be?
So I wouldn't say it was a requirement per se. Looking at the sort of variety of legal tech tools that are out there now, much like Brighter that you had seen, from the
Yeah.
lecture, I think it was this week, that last week.
Yeah, it was this week. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
it's been one of those years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of platforms out there, and they are low code, no code. So basically, you're able to do like craft really bespoke, effective solutions without having to actually code yourself.
Yeah.
So there's not a need at all, to have this understanding of like code. That being said, I think it's useful to know because it also enables you to do a little bit more with the tools, I would say.
Hmm.
You've got a lot of your legal tech tools out there that are low code, no code. They're doing fantastic things. They are like they know their audience, and they are adapting really well to what's needed in the market. So
Yeah.
there isn't really a need for code because we can automate documents using like low code,
Hmm.
no code. We can set up, like chatbots, the automated workflows, decision trees. We can do all of that stuff without having any understanding of code ourselves.
Hmm.
But where it can be quite useful is if, you just want to maybe tweak something that a software does. Or, so whether that be changing the layout of like a dashboard or a page,
Yeah.
maybe embedding like a video into something, or trying to think what else, like integrating platforms with one another. Code is
Hmm.
really good for that. And I would say, I mean, it really depends what, like in terms of what code. I suppose it would depend.
Yeah.
Some use JavaScript, because it's vastly used,
Hmm.
but Python is also like a really good starting point, and I feel like Python's like one that's relatively easier to pick up.
Yeah.
Um, and what I would say, if it was something that people were interested in, like I wouldn't say it's necessary to become a technologist. Like I wouldn't say that at all. Like I have had no coding experience, prior to sort of dabbling here and there in the role, and
Yeah.
it's not hindered me any. But I know myself that if I knew more of it, it would enhance my role. It would enhance like the service that I could provide to people because I could do more.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not required, but there's no harm in learning something new. So why
Yeah.
not code?
I suppose it's one of those things where, like you say, it's not essential, but I suppose it might just come down to how much of a perfectionist you are and you kind of want to cover all bases. And ultimately, it might just come down to whether you're really, really interested in learning code to the extent where even if you're not going to use it on a day-to-day basis, you're still interested enough to actually learn it, maybe for other activities or whatever it may be. So, yeah, it's good to hear that if you do kind of want to go into legal technology and work as a legal technologist or something similar, you don't have to be a coding genius. We're not fully going into kind of like software development. Like we mentioned with Brighter, I know it's something that we're going to get our hands on in a few weeks at one of the boot camps, which I'm really looking forward to. Like that uses WYSIWYG, which for anyone that doesn't know, it's a what you see is what you get, and you essentially just type in things to the interface. It's a very easy to use user interface. You don't have to go into the back end and look at the code or anything. It's all just very much type and go, and it's very interesting to use. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it because it's kind of brought back all the nostalgia of coding myself all those years ago. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, just on to my last couple of questions, Chloe. I've got two left. The first one I will ask is, with the progression of legal tech and the automation of tasks which would traditionally be conducted by junior lawyers, for example, document review, things like that, where do you think this will leave such lawyers moving forward, and what tasks will they be doing? So I suppose I'm kind of approaching this from like a skeptic's point of view, of someone who perhaps doesn't want to go into legal tech but wants to become a junior lawyer, and then looking at it thinking this tech is taking away some of the jobs that they would be doing.
So again, one of the things I would say is, legal tech isn't there to remove the
Yeah.
tasks. We have the software out here for like, artificial intelligence used for like document review, etc. It's not there to take this task away from you. Like you as a solicitor are using legal tech to just, as I say, to enhance the work that you do. You will still be reviewing documents. There are, I mean, like just thinking, personally, we have our AI tools available for us to use in document review. And, right now we do use it in a lot of cases. But, there may be some projects where you might think, this is fine. Like we can trust the AI completely to do that. And we have in various cases, it's been okay. It really high efficient extraction rate. So it's fine. But you as a solicitor, you still want to review it. So it's not like, all of a sudden, oh, we never have to do document reviews ever again. The AI is just there to help do this quicker, more
Mm-hmm.
effective. And actually, looking at the sort of landscape right now and kind of how the document review platforms work, the artificial intelligence is trained on provisions, sure, but it doesn't know everything. You, as a solicitor, particularly as a junior solicitor who is going to be more involved with this kind of work, you're actually going to be involved in tasks where you will be training the AI on how to extract
Yeah.
provisions. So it's not like you are completely detracted from the process. You're actually working with it or using it, should I say, because it's not some sort of sentient being. But like, you're using the tool to enhance its efficiency, which in turn is going to improve you because you're not going to have to waste time like
Yeah.
reiterating or the same stuff over and over again, or having to find the same data in like 20-30 contracts, because you can teach a platform how to do it and it does it for you, and you can just be like, okay, fine, I've saved about 10-20 hours, and now all I have to do is just maybe spend like maybe an hour or two just having a look at the final
Yeah.
extractions to see if I'm happy with this diligence. So it's definitely not there to take away tasks from you. Like you will still be involved in a lot of legal tasks. And one of the things again I would also highlight is that, as a solicitor, it's your knowledge that is there for your role. Like that is your strength. The reason legal tech came about like in the first place was, yeah, it was, to enhance the way that you do things and to make to essentially have these tasks being fulfilled in a quicker and efficient manner. But there's something that tech can't do in a sense, and it's to draw, like, to infer your knowledge and your
Yeah.
experience. That's something that's always going to be unique to you as a solicitor. The tech is there to alleviate any sort of administrative burden on your day to
Mm-hmm.
day so that you can focus on the reason you became a lawyer in the first
Yeah.
place.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
you
Like,
know.
I don't know anyone who wants to go into law to really get into the nitty gritty of doc review or sitting there with thousands of pieces of paper just scanning through for certain terms. So I think it's like you say, it all comes back to the fact that the legal tech is not there to steal your job. It's not there to do anything evil. It's there really to make your life easier and make the client's life easier. And anything which can do that is obviously going to be a benefit. And like Chloe says, ultimately what it's going to do is it'll make your life easier and free your time up to do more tasks which you ultimately went into the legal profession as a lawyer to do. So I think it's a win-win situation. I think that's a really kind of nice way to put it. It's going to free you up to do the things that you actually want to do rather than having all these administrative burdens, like you said, Chloe. So yeah, that kind of wraps up the kind of questions that I had on that front. I know we've kind of got on a little bit here, which is great because this is a really good discussion and I think it's a really healthy discussion to have as well. But I'm aware that as we're recording, it's went past 5 p.m. and Chloe, I'm sure you've had a really busy day, so I don't want to keep you here for too long. So I just have one more question that I think will wrap up the podcast nicely. And that question is, what are you most excited about in the legal tech world in the near future? Tough
Ooh,
question.
that's a
Yeah.
hard one. That's a very tough question. I I think one of the key things that I honestly love about this job is actually the variety and getting to see people work together in a way that we have never seen people
Yeah.
work before. We're seeing like an excitement in the industry where people are actually looking forward to trying new things and seeing what's out there to be like, okay, there's this issue that's coming up. Any idea of how we can do this? And everyone's actually so on the ball with seeing what's available
Hmm.
now. Like what tools are actually out there? Like a lawyer could tell me because they know like they're on this and they are excited to try new things. So I think one of the things I'm most excited about in the future is actually that we're getting that hype from people now.
Yeah.
Something that was, legal tech was not that big, a few years ago. Like very few people were involved in it. A lot of people, they were skeptical. They didn't want to do this. So you were met with this sort of like negativity, whenever you would mention it. But that's not it now. We're seeing like it's starting to thrive a little. And I think that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to. And not just because people like our clients or our solicitors or people, in the firm, not just because they are getting like excited about it, but actually we're seeing a lot of people who can build software getting excited about it too. We are seeing new tools surfacing in the industry. So, it isn't just like if you think, God, back to when, Microsoft Office came out, that was like all the rage.
Yeah.
Like, we're thinking this is amazing. We can now like type on a
Yeah.
computer instead of writing. Like, that was the big thing. Um, and then, there was like slight iterations over the years when, something new started to pop up, like, oh, well, we can do like PowerPoints. Oh, we can do like
Yeah.
spreadsheets. I know, why don't we have like a Google Doc where we can do this stuff together? Like, all these little things add up and they're all encapsulating something different. They're taking something that you know and that you have used, but they're putting a new layer on it, something different for you to use. And I'm so excited to see what else is on the horizon. Because like not that long ago, I didn't really know what document automation was, and I knew that there's like the primary contender in this sort of field, but we're seeing so many other companies now as well coming out to be like, yeah, sure we do document automation, but we can also tie it in with like a workflow, so we
Yeah.
can automatically send this to somebody for you. So you're seeing the sort of gradual build up of like different different tools, I guess, like different sort of tech combining and becoming one
Hmm.
and creating like new products for that. And it's just honestly, I'm just excited to see what's actually up and coming and what I can get my hands on.
Yeah. I,
Which is probably the most fun bit.
I think it definitely comes across, Chloe, how passionate you are about the space and about your job and really just about legal tech in general. So I really do just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your experiences and kind of giving some advice for people who are looking at the kind of legal tech world and thinking, should I go into that? What is it about? And it's really to help and expand my knowledge, because even just to a few months ago, I really had no idea what legal tech really was. And as my kind of interest grew, I've looked at different articles and obviously attended different workshops. And luckily, the commercial awareness module on the course is tied in nicely for that. And it's something that I'm really looking at now, thinking that seems really interesting. Obviously, as a bit of a tech head myself, that kind of seems normal and something you'd expect. But I think, like you say, it's definitely expanding. It's definitely an exciting space. And I'm definitely excited to see where it goes. So yeah, Chloe, that does wrap us up. So I would just like to say again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights. It's been a really good discussion for me taking part. It's been a real privilege to kind of pick your brains on this topic. And for anyone who does kind of want to learn more, I'm aware that Chloe has done a piece with the Legal Technologist back in January. So I'm going to link that at the top of the description if you want to go and read more about what a kind of day-to-day life is like for Chloe and other legal technologists. But yeah, thank you, Chloe, for coming on, and hopefully we'll get to speak to you again soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. And if you or any of the listeners have any questions, please just feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a chat. And so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening to another episode of our podcast. If you like what you hear, please follow us on your podcast platform of choice to ensure that you never miss an upload. To keep up to date with us, you can follow our Instagram page, which is Star Law Society. Additionally, our Twitter is @_Star Law Society. In the meantime, it's goodbye from me, and I'll speak to you again very soon.